Hello, welcome. I'm Martina and I'm here with Christina, and we are your podcast hosts for everyday, ordinary, extraordinary men. We're deep divers and avid students of life and powerful facilitators for healing. In real life, I'm a life coach specializing in parent and women empowerment, and I'm also a sound healer.
And I'm Christina. I'm an intuitive healer who loves to blend massage therapy with energy work to provide customized holistic services for my clients. Martina and I both love to incorporate crystals, essential oils, Reiki, intuitive guidance, and oracle work into all of the work that we do with our clients.
So let me tell you about the context. Most humans have a lot of preconceived notions about stereotypes about gender. So, for example, men are tough, silent, forceful, women are chatty, manipulative, and emotional. Now, in doing that, we put people in a box and often forget to see beyond those labels. And if someone is not fitting the mold, we might call them a tomboy or a sissy. And those and similar labels often cause discord. So here's our question. What would the world look like where we go beyond our preconceived notions and understand that we are so much more than our gender? That we humans are strong and soft and gentle and deep and powerful and tough and fierce and open, and that qualities are not specific to a gender, that we all have all qualities available to express. What would the world look like where we are all free to be who we choose to be and express all of our emotions? Now, when we allow ourselves to express the so-called masculine and feminine qualities within ourselves, we set ourselves free. When we allow others to do the same, when we accept all of them, we create synergy, peace, and harmony. And today, we're here with Avery. Welcome, Avery. Do you want to tell our listeners who you are and what you do and whatever you want to tell them?
Sure. It's fantastic to be with you. One, thank you for having me. I'm really excited for our conversation. So, my name is Avery Ford. I'm a coach, creative director, and screenwriter in Chicago. And for the past 10 years, my work is really focused on helping people tell their stories. So, sometimes that often looks like helping them in their business, how they communicate, how they lead, how they strategize with their business. But as a screenwriter, I'm really interested in hearing people's stories, the stories that we don't often get a chance to hear of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. That's what really drives me. So I'm excited for this conversation.
Thank you so much for being here. And you know, Avery, for me, and I just met you very briefly, right? And we never really talked before today, and I'm so excited to have you on here. One of the things that stood out is just really I never know if I can say sweetness for a man, but like your gentleness, your heart, your sweetness. And so I am really, really excited that you're here with us today. So if we really knew you, what would we know?
It's a good question. If you really knew me, what would you know? The first words that come up is a deep well of creative energy. You would know that no matter what I'm doing, whether it's sitting with a client or writing or being out in the world, that what lights me up the most is the act of creativity itself, being in that flow. It doesn't matter what you're doing. For me, that looks like writing and storytelling is the thing that lights me up. But I was with a client a couple of weeks ago in an intensive, and this is a client who's kind of business focused, but during our conversation, she shared that she paints and draws on rocks, these intricate doodles and designs on rocks, and she has them all over the house. And she would leave these rocks around the neighborhood or in the nook of a tree. And finding this revelation out about her after knowing her for quite a while, for many years, finding that there's this secret expression of her soul, expression of her creativity was like a revelation. It was like finding a hidden room. inside of the soul of a person that I didn't know, and they revealed to me. And I think what you'd find if you really knew me at a soul level was that that is the thing that I love the most about being human, about being here, is when you sit with someone, you get to know them long enough. If you relax and create a space where someone can really be themselves, they unfold like flowers. They reveal whole rooms and universes inside of them that they often don't share with other people. And it's those revelations that light me up a lot.
The image that came was like a puzzle, a jigsaw, right? It's like there's another piece and there's another piece. So it's almost like you are the what is the word? The putting the whole picture together. That's what lights you up.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's fascinating. I often say if someone doesn't have secrets, I'll get bored very easily because I love having like new things to discover. I think that's the thread between storytelling and coaching. It's really about psychology. It's about what makes someone tick. And with a character, as you write them, you find out things about them. And the same thing with coaching or leading or doing any sort of work with someone. Over time, as they feel safe, you learn more and you find those secrets, and it's amazing.
I love this answer. I feel the same in massage. The clients will often say to me, I don't understand, Christina, how is it possible that the work we do just gets better and better? You would think like there'd be a plateau, but I tell them no, because the more comfortable you get, the more you let go, the more you trust, the more you release, the more, and then you come in ready to do that work where maybe the first couple of times you're tense the first few minutes on the table, right? So there's that level of relaxing and letting go where you can finally open up in those safe spaces. And so that's the other piece of what I hear you saying, is that you create the safe space for your clients too, where they can open up to you and show pieces that they don't normally show the world.
Yeah, I think that's at our highest. That's what we're all here for. We're all here to really be with one another, to create space. To I think it was Ram Dass who said we're all here to walk each other home. And when we allow ourselves to get quiet and present, we create space for that to happen. And conversations like this are a great example of that, right? You quiet the noise down, you get really still, you get curious, and even with people you thought you knew, even with a family member, you'll be surprised when you enter into a space of non-judgment and curiosity, what they will reveal to you and what that does with your relationship. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's
I was gonna say when you were talking before that it's like, is there people that have no secrets? Like, is there such a thing? You know?
I don't know. I think there are people who are, I feel like there's secrets that we keep consciously, and then there's unconscious
Yes.
secrets.
Okay.
So
Because I'm like,
maybe
everybody has, then there's the next door, and there's even things that I imagine, like I know I don't know about myself, that all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, I didn't know that I did that, right? So it's like, yeah, I get it.
so Avery, share a funny, silly, or embarrassing story about yourself with us.
Oh my goodness. There's many. So I'm very clumsy. I'm tall, 6'3", a little bit clumsy. I'm known in my group of friends and acquaintances as the person who's most likely to trip on a crack in the sidewalk. Um, for many years, I was nomadic. I traveled the world while I operated my online business, and I had an injury or a scar for every country that I would, right? Sometimes very small or superficial, but right, there's always something. Um, an embarrassing story. Let's see. So there was the day in Bali. My friend and I had decided to take our motorcycles, our mopeds, and go on a road trip up through the rice fields and then to this series of waterfalls. And in one day, One, not being well coordinated. A moped is maybe not my best form of transportation, right? A scooter, not for me. Back of a car being Ubered, yes. But we scooted along and he was in the lead. And I'm, of course, ADHD, distracted, looking at the scenery. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. And I don't realize that he's turned like a corner to loop back around. I slam on the brakes, go over the handles of the scooter. The scooter flips in the street. He turns around. Of course, we have to patch me up and manage me. But I'm determined. No, we're still going to go to these waterfalls. We can't turn back. I don't care if I'm scraped and bleeding. Like, we're on a mission. Let's go. The first waterfall, I slip on the rock and like fall down part of the face of the waterfall. It's injury number 2 of the day. And he's like, "Are you sure you don't want to go back now?" And I'm like, "Now, typical man. Like, now I'm just dug in." I'm like, "No, we're going. We're here. We're going to see all 3." The second waterfall, we're passing, like, we see the waterfall, we swim, we go all the way downstream with what looks like a foot of water where you can just kind of walk across the stream. He's walking ahead. As he looks back to me, I take a step forward to what I think is just the next rock, and I disappear into the water. I go all the way down, all 6'3" of me, like underwater. As I'm falling, I'm throwing my phone and my bag at him midair, and then boosh, just gone underneath. There's a very famous gif of a jaguar that like falls into a pool and it's like grasping for the side of the pool. He said that's what it looked like. Finally, like I pop back up, we pull me out, we go sit, at the edge of the trail. And I look at him and I go, now we can go home. Like now I'm ready to go home. And there was something like that at almost every country. There was something ridiculous or embarrassing that happened, but it's kind of part of the fun, really.
I was going to say, but you cannot say you were not coordinated because you actually tossed your backpack at him. So
I
that
did. I
takes a
saved the
lot,
important
that
things.
takes a lot of coordination.
It was just midair, just throwing things at him. Like, so
Yes,
it was amazing.
beautiful. So,
Always, you can't trust me. If we're ever out and about, please look out for sidewalks, look out for curbs, maybe take my hand because I'm likely to injure myself at some point. It's just part of the package. It's how it goes.
well, at least if you can laugh about it, that's not bad. Can you laugh
That was
about it?
good. Oh, I'm still here. And they're always funny. Like, they're always funny. So it works out. I haven't
Yeah,
died yet.
yeah.
That's all we can ask.
That's a blessing if you can laugh about it. That's really the best. So, what makes you laugh?
Oh, Lord. A lot of things. So I don't know if you ever watch or you know of RuPaul's Drag Race, the series.
Yep.
I'm not a big fan of the show or the series, but there are 2 drag queens from that show who have their own like podcast and YouTube show. Their names are Trixie and Katya. If I'm ever kind of in the doldrums, just putting on their show will always make me laugh. Just silly, their chemistry with each other. Um, it's very yes and. You ever meet people where they can yes and with you, where they keep the joke going and add to it? That's the best because I can be a little improvisational. I like to make people laugh myself. So if you can pick up on it and we keep the joke going, I will end up in stitches not being able to breathe. So that's the best part to me. Like just silly, seeing where the story or where the joke goes and kind of adding to it and seeing how far you can take it. I like that a lot. What else makes me laugh? Mm, dark humor, like sarcastic humor also. Like often very funny. Like when things are tragic, but being able to make a joke about it is sometimes the funniest jokes. So those make me laugh a lot. What about you?
Mm.
I was thinking when my mom was dying and we were you know, like the dark humor, right? It's just, and it's a way of dispersing like the energy, right? That is just so tight. But we were laughing hysterically, and we were all my four siblings. We were together in my parents' apartment because that's where she wanted to be, and that's where. But yeah, we were laughing so hard at you know the silliest things. My mom said, "You're breaking me," and we all broke out laughing. It's like, okay, yeah, definitely
For
dark humor.
my current one is Nailed It. Have you seen that silly so it's a baking challenge, but it's amateur bakers have to recreate these like crazy cakes and stuff. And they have to present and they go, nailed it. And it's like these cakes
That's
falling
amazing.
over, or like they put salt instead of sugar, and the like judges are like, you know, and yes, it's kind of similar thing. I found the show with my family after we had after my mom passed, and we put my mom, or after my dad passed, we put my mom and dad's ashes together, and we had this ceremony on their anniversary. And we're all kind of like needing a little, and we sat down and watched hours of this show, just crying, laughing. And sometimes you need that. So yeah, Nailed It. When I need a good cry is what I go to. Laugh and cry.
I always loved like funerals and weddings, but often funerals. It sounds silly. I love funerals a lot, not because of the funeral itself, but because after the funeral, when everyone's sitting around, the stories start.
Yep.
And that, like, hearing all of the stories and like, oh, do you remember the time? And then the reminiscing, and then the brothers and sisters and the cousins, or you see your parents or your
Good.
aunts
Yeah.
and uncles in a different light. We're
Yeah.
talking about when they were 5. I always wish that I had a recorder during those moments, because
Yeah.
those stories go away, right? As everyone who lived them and remembered them dies, the story kind of dies too. And there's something sometimes in the story of someone completely ordinary is like the most beautiful, like it's Oscar worthy. Just, you know, these adventures, these capers that our parents, our grandparents, our aunts, uncles, our friends had. There's literally little movies happening around us all the time that
And
we
that's why
never know.
I loved that TV series, Little America. Have you seen it? It's just
No,
these
I
little
haven't seen it.
stories about immigrants. And it's just lovely because it's these just heartfelt stories, but it gives you this new insight and perspective once again into different cultures, people's journeys. Like yeah, they're just all really cool. I when I feel like I need something really hard, then they're short and sweet, and so I'm like, oh, let me put on an episode of Little America and see what I can learn about today. So yeah,
Love that.
mm-hmm. It's good stuff.
Actually, Avery, let me ask you something because you said
Yeah.
you were traveling around, you were a nomad. What had you
Yeah.
end up in Chicago? Like what is it about Chicago?
Well, many years ago when I moved away from home when I was 19. A lot of people wonder, so I'm a gay man, and a lot of people wonder if that was part of it, but really, I just wanted to get away. I had a difficult childhood, and really completely apart from being gay. It felt like being gay was the least of the worries. All of the other things happening in the household were much more like, well, I don't want to be around those things. So at 19, I moved to Kansas City, and my first business that I started a cleaning company. I used to clean houses, and then I was cleaning buildings downtown to make money. And I put myself through film school and knew I just had the instinct that I wanted to move to Chicago. So when I was 24-ish, somewhere around there, I took the leap. I moved to Chicago with no plan. And within a week, I had a job as the assistant to the founder of the film festival here. And I worked that job for like a season. So 3, 4 months, whatever the film festival season is. Ironically, festival life, people who work at film festivals are nomadic. They work at Chicago, and then they go to Telluride, and then they go to Miami, and then they go to Cannes, and they work at the different festivals. So a lot of the staff is the same. I couldn't afford to do that at the time. And so then I ended up moving back to Kansas City and I worked as an event coordinator and then did the traveling when I started my online business. But I always felt like Chicago was unfinished. So even after I traveled for 4 years, I'd put everything in storage in Kansas City and I knew that when it was time that Chicago would be the place. So what, coming up on 3 years ago, I like got everything out of storage and moved in here in Chicago, and I love it. It's the beach, you have the beach, you have the city, you have tons of things to explore. I love the energy of a city. So it feels good to have given myself that experience that I felt like I didn't get to have when I was younger and like had lived here for those 4 months. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah. So where did you grow up, Avery?
I grew up in Florida, outside of Jacksonville, in a little
Yeah.
town called Orange Park. I always describe it as like normal suburb, like strip mall hell, but then plop it right next to a swamp. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
you have all of the trappings of like modern suburban America, but you ride your bike a little to the back of the neighborhood, and there's little inlets and alligators, and we as kids would take somebody's dad's canoe in the middle of summer and just go out into these channels and into the swamp. We could have died, I'm sure, but we just thought it was magic. And, you know, it was this interesting contrast of
I'm sure it was magical as a kid. It's just
really
interesting to
tame
go
and
from
then
Florida
like
to the Midwest.
wild. Yeah.
It's cool.
It's a strange place, Florida. Like there's or at least my experience of it. It's very tame. You have Disney World and golf courses and like retirement homes, but then you have swamp and orchid groves and alligators and all sorts of crazy things. It's like two worlds that are smushed together, coexisting.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there. So, Avery, what would you say your biggest lesson is in life? Like, what was your biggest challenge, or maybe what took the most courage, or
Ongoing, I would say. Um,
yeah,
I think the biggest lesson has been to trust, like trust yourself, slow down, really be present. There's a space you can enter into when you're consistent with things like gratitude, things like meditation or being present. There's a space you can enter into where life is happening through you and with you. And when you get away from that, it can feel like life happens to you and you kind of get lost in the sauce. So it feels like the journey has been a series of rememberings, like remembering, oh, doesn't have to be that hard. It can be simple. It can be easy. You can trust yourself. You can trust life. You can trust people. Then you get away from that. And then you have to work your way back to it. It's almost like had someone describe it as a spiral upwards. You just revisit the lessons again and again and again and again and again until you
yeah,
release them. So that's been a big one of the answers to the big things are in the small things. It really is as simple as the gratitude, the daily practices, the simple actions that create the big things. It doesn't have to be so hard and complicated. You can relax. You can trust.
mm, good stuff. But there is a certain level of discipline in that too, right? To
Well,
do those things, to meditate, to stay
I always
grounded.
admire the people who are very disciplined. Like when you see people who are like the David Goggins, we talk about the masculine and feminine, the hyper masculine. I'm just like, go, go, rah. I admire that, but it seems very alien to me. I'm I had a mentor, his name was Michael. He said standard over schedule, meaning it wasn't that you meditate at 6 a.m. every morning, but if you're committed, can you find at least 20 minutes every day? It doesn't matter when it is. If you're committed to going to the gym or working out or doing whatever that habit is, can you just commit to it happening X number of times and let go of that it has to look a certain way? So I try to lean into that because I'm not as consistent in almost anything as I would like to be. And it's an interesting dichotomy of working towards the consistency,
Mhm.
but also relaxing around it and not torturing yourself when you don't get there.
Yeah, I kind of live in the same realm myself. Like, do I try to get up every morning, go straight from my bed to my vibrating bed and listen to my meditations? Yeah. Do I do that every morning? No. Some mornings I'm like, nope, that's not how I want to start the day. And some days that works well for me, and other days it doesn't, right? Um, and so yeah. Um, I have my moments too where I'm like, oh, I could be way more disciplined. And on the other side, I don't know if I want to live in that super structured world either. So
No,
um, yeah.
I
It
agree.
is. It's definitely finding that balance, right? It's like I always talk about that the tyrant, right? Our inner tyrant. And I went digging and I discovered it. It's literally it's the size of the seed of a seed, but she has a hand that is huge and she has a megaphone and she has a whip, right? That's mine. I don't know and about anybody else's, right? But it's just finding that middle spot between no, she doesn't have to get activated. And yes, sometimes it's great to have a little push. And like what came to mind as you were talking, Christina, and you too, Avery, is like the Don Miguel Ruiz when he says, always do your best. And your best today is not what, or right now is not what it's going to be in half an hour, but always do your best, right? And so it's like, yeah, and be just generous and gentle and, love the heck out of yourself in the process, right? I think ultimately.
When you're talking about the inner tyrant, it reminds me or sounds a little bit like internal family systems or parts work. And I found that for me to be very powerful of a way to just deal with myself and work with myself when I become conscious of either thoughts or patterns that are being activated that I'm acting out. Sometimes what it will take is literally talking out loud to myself, dividing the parts and almost having a conversation, or bringing a certain part forward and talking to the rest of myself, which sounds funny and probably looks funny if you were to be in the room when it happens. But it's almost like coaching yourself. It's like, oh, hey, little tyrant, like, what are you doing? What's happening? How are you feeling? And then
What
you
do
just
you need right now?
what's going on?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
Mm.
I
yeah.
think that's really important and useful to be able to separate that out and recognize, like, oh, that's a part, not the whole. The
Yeah.
part of
And to
self
have
that
some
you can
fun
be.
around it too, right? Like not to be so significant. And
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's so I trained with Debbie Ford, which is all about shadow. It's all shadow work, right? And but I remember even with Christina when we went to remember when we went to when we went what is it, Dr. Yulin Ho'oponopono,
Ho'oponopono. Yeah. I was
like
gonna
your inner child, right? And
That's
Christina,
exactly what I was gonna say yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Pack your backpack. Like ask when you wake up every morning with Ho'oponopono, like part of it is asking your little Unahapila, your inner child, what it wants for the day, right? And ask it if it wants a backpack and should you pack snacks for it. And I remember when we did that after taking the class and it was a hot day and I was like, okay, little inner child, what do you want to wear today? And I was like, a sundress. And she was like, no. And I was like, um, whatever else I suggested. And she was like, no. And I'm like, what do you want to wear? And she's like, shorts. And I was like, at that point in my life, I didn't own shorts because I didn't like my legs. And I was like, oh, all right, shorts. Okay. And I think it was soon after that I went out and bought shorts. I was like, all right, if Una Pilian wants shorts, I should probably embrace this. And it sounds crazy when you're doing it at first, but it's fun. It's fun work. Yeah.
It's really cool work. So, um, Avery, tell us about the time you took a chance for love. And it's not necessarily romantic love. It can be, it doesn't have to be. When did you take a chance for love?
Mm. Two things come up. I'll share the first one. Um, one of the reasons I decided to stop traveling and be in one place for a while was to reconnect with my writing, my screenwriting, my filmmaking, because I'd been so focused on building my business and coaching, and that part had kind of fallen by the wayside, even though the ideas and the connection to it was always there. And I do ceremonial work with psilocybin a few times a year with a facilitator in Colorado. So I go and I do private ceremonies like 3, 4 times each year. And this was towards the beginning of that process. And I was in the ceremony space asking myself the question, what do I want? And the question morphed into, what do I love and what is true? What's true? And in that space, 3 things rose. Like from the core of my being, it was like a guitar string being plucked and the vibration rising up. 3 truths. The first was my now mentor, that I wanted to hire them and work with them, that I'd want to do for a long time. The second was someone I had been dating, that I loved them and wanted to tell them. And the third was a story that I'd been thinking about writing and telling as a screenplay, that scared me and was complex and big and seemed too much, that I wanted to write it. And I had been kind of fooling around and negotiating with myself up until that point. Okay, I'm moving, I'm settling down, so I can write. Let me write something that is simple. Let me write something that would be easy to make. Let me write something within some constraints. And the truth that came up was, you don't want to write any of those. You know exactly which story you want to write next. Write it. It's true. You love it. When you think about it, it makes you want to cry. Write that one. And committing to that, I spent the next 8 months doing research and then a year writing. And for my 37th birthday, all of my friends and people who I'd met around the world and through online business, they all came to Chicago and we did a reading of the script for that project. And that acknowledging that I loved it and that it's what I really wanted felt like a radical act of self-love, because the logical part of me would have said, no, write a short film, write something you could actually make. And just, no, I want to write that. I want to tell that story. It doesn't matter how risky or illogical it might be. That's the one. So that was a leap and a risk. And I'm really glad I did it. I finished it. It was my first finished feature film script, and now there are others that I've written and been working on, but that one was very difficult and very special.
How powerful.
Woohoo!
Powerful.
Yay!
And I love how you talked about negotiating, the negotiating you go through to like just get yourself in action, right? And we go through it. I've never heard anyone talk about it like that. So yay.
Yeah,
'Cause
we try to small size it, I think. Like immediately the inner critic, whenever there's a quality to truth, like when something's really true for you, it kind of it's inarguable, and it's often inconvenient, and it's often feels impossible. But if it's true and you know that it's true, like this is true, I love this person, I want to create this work, I'm reading, by the way, I don't know if anyone's read The Way of Integrity by Martha Beck, but I'm reading that right now and it's perfection. But if it's true, I don't want to work in corporate America anymore. I want to open a pottery store. And that's what's most true. It is an act of radical bravery to, one, hear it, acknowledge it, and then orient yourself towards it. Right. And with it, it might sound silly to the listener or to like you're listening, oh, which story do you want to write? But there was something about the fact that this story was based on real people who actually lived, that it was large in scale, and that this would be my first, I'd written short films and other work. This would be my first like feature film script. All the conventional wisdom was like, no, you don't tackle the passion project first. You do other things. But what was true was no, this.
Yeah, my intuition knows, and hmm
And really listening to your intuition, right? That's, I think, such a big, I'm going to call it challenge in our world today, right? Because that's not what's smart, that's not what's, but who cares?
And you
That's
have
what
to be
lights you up,
still.
that's what makes you happy.
I think it's easy because we all, social media and just the modern world, there's so much data and information coming in all the time. I think it's more difficult now than it ever has been to actually get still enough to feel and hear what's true. Like you have to really slow down enough because you have, I mean, how many pieces of content do we all scroll past a day? It's something like 2 miles of scrolling or whatever the statistic is. It's something insane. All of that data and information, those are all like, it's all seeping in. We have a lot of other people's opinions and perspectives.
right,
It takes even
and
more work to actually slow down and say, oh, this is what's true for me. And I think many of
right,
us have lost the ability to even discern what's true versus what's an idea or the ego or what someone else would want us to do.
right. And we're not encouraged to make decisions based on what make us happy. Like that's not usually a thought process. It's what's going to pay the bills and
Yeah.
what's going to, you know, happy. That's just not. And you ask someone that, they'll be like, oh, who's got time for happy, right? Like, but
Okay.
that's what we want every day. I mean, that's what I want. I want to be happy every day. And do all my actions align with that? Probably not. But the more I'm aware of that conversation, the more I can align my actions in a way that will make me happy.
Yeah. It's a daily practice. I'm thinking a lot about The Way of Integrity, that book, because I'm reading it right now. And in the book, she took a year. She challenged herself to do 1 year of integrity, which meant not lying to herself or to others. And it basically radically transformed, sometimes in destructive ways, her life. Because if you're committed to being in integrity and telling the absolute truth, and the truth is, I don't want to be married, or the truth is, in Martha's case, I'm a member of the staff at a Mormon university and I don't actually believe what they believe. So when I'm asked in front, and my father is the head of one of the heads of Mormonism, and I can't lie about not believing it anymore, I risk being ostracized from my community for saying what I think. Like,
Yeah.
radical. Or as simple as, do I want that cheeseburger? What's true is, no, actually, I don't, because I know that it's not aligned with the right. It goes as big or as small as you want it to. I
Mm.
can't imagine. I have not committed to doing integrity cleanse for a year. She says to start off with a week.
Yeah. Yeah, I could probably handle a week.
Well, maybe we start with the day, right?
Just one day.
Maybe, I mean, even that I can imagine is challenging enough, and then we can expand it to a few days a week,
Yeah.
couple of weeks a month.
hmm Good stuff. So, Avery, what would you say your superpower is?
Mm. Two things. I'm thinking about them in terms of business, like the coaching work I do with business owners often has to do with marketing, messaging, strategy, but I've always seen it as really not much different than the screenwriting because the superpower, what's reflected back to me often is I can often see people's stories or their brilliance. Like I can see what they do, how they do it, who they do it for, and who they are in such a way that I'm able to thread the narrative or thread the message together and reflect it back to them so that they see themselves. They can finally see like who they are and what they do and how it all fits together. So, and that's the same act of, like it's the same, comes from the same place as when you're writing a script, when you're plotting out a character's arc. It's the same skill, just used in different ways. So I think it's the ability to see people deeply and be able to reflect or communicate back what I see in such a way that they can thread that narrative. They can start telling their own story in a different way, whether it's the story of their life or the story of their work and how they help people. That is what I would say the superpower is. So.
So bringing clarity, is that it? Or is it more than clarity?
I'm not sure. It's a good question. I think
I would say there's a few different pieces that go along with that. So like you you see people's greatness, right? And you reflect it back to them. Like that in and of itself is a gift, and right? But you help them to kind of see their life in the grander, like the full picture of it, the grander scheme of it, like how that little piece that they may be hyper focused on in the grand scheme is this beautiful journey, right? Like that's how I hear what you're saying.
yeah, it's often what people will say, or what I have reflected back is you show you show me through example, but also through words, how to communicate and embody what I do. How to see the bigger picture, but then to show up in that way, how to thread. I'm thinking of a specific client, the who has built multiple businesses. She's been a businesswoman for almost 40 years and spoken on stages and had different careers. But now, because she's been transitioning into the online space, for her, it feels completely different. And so it's like all of that experience was separate.
Yeah.
But through the conversations early on, the more I learned, the more it was kind of looking at like, do you not see who you are? Like, do you not see that if I asked you to describe you, you would say one thing, but then if you asked me to introduce you, I would say, we'll call her Jan. This is Jan. She's been an entrepreneur and businesswoman for more than 40 years. She's spoken on stages around the world, built a very successful $1 million staffing agency, and now helps people do blah, 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 blah. And like that's very natural to me just to see the arc of the narrative and to be able to communicate it in a couple of sentences.
Right.
The superpower is clients often go, how the hell did you do that? Like what the fuck did you just do? I don't know. Just I saw you and then I told the story of you. Whether I have a page to do it, a paragraph to do it, or two sentences to do it, there's a way to do it.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. So beautiful. So it's like you see all of them, but you have the ability to tell the story too. And
Yeah, and
oh,
help them do that. Because like if you
mhm.
want to succeed, whether you're doing body work and energy work, or whether you're a coach of some kind, or whether you're open up in a wing shop down the street, why I'm going to come to you, or why I'm going to stop in your wing shop. Yes, it has to do with what you're offering being good. You have to be good at what you do. But the real reason that I'm going to become a client and keep coming back is you, like the story of you and why you do what you do and how that intersects with me and what I believe and what I want. Right. And if you can help someone extract that and kind of see it, and then they start embodying it and communicating it, that's when really magic happens. They start to build communities. Other people who are in alignment with that gather around them, who were always there. They just weren't showing up as visibly or as coherently before.
Yeah. And once you put more energy into it, then the energy gets vibed up, and then that's attracting the energy of the other people to you. So yeah. Good
That's
stuff.
really, really, really cool. Beautiful. So yeah, it is definitely seeing their greatness in the whole thing, right? That's the first step. And then connecting the dots for them.
Yeah. I think all of us need mirrors. All of us need people in our lives who can do that because we're too close to it. It's like trying to see your own elbow. You just can't, right? That's whether it could be a therapist, it could be a coach, it could just be the best friend who you tell everything to, but we all need that person who can see us and go, no, 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 no. This is who you are. And that's not who you are. It's this, right? We all need that.
Somebody on the outside, because we don't like, well, I guess part of it is also we carry around our stories, right? And what we've been told and all the conditioning and all that other crap that we need to dig our way out of. So, so every last question. If you had a magic wand and you could give people any quality, what would it be and why?
The first answer that came up because of the things that are happening in the world right now would be critical thinking skills and the ability to check sources and facts. Like,
Yeah.
just can I wave that wand and give everyone the ability to think critically and follow the trail of where information or money came from. I feel like that would end a lot of conflict and arguing and bamboozling that's going on. People they're so worked up and they're so in their corners about what's right. They're, especially here in the US, they're literally living in different universes and seeing different news and have completely different news feeds. It's like, okay, do you ever question, like, even the stuff you agree with, question it, like follow it. Where did it come from? Who sponsored it? Who paid for that article? Is that who wrote it?
Is it
All
true?
Are they a quality source of
Is it
information?
true? Can it actually, what is true? The fact that truth and facts get debated blows my mind as a 90s kid. And I had a fantastic teacher. Her name was Colleen Kelly in the University of Missouri, Kansas City. And we did a whole class on critical thinking and media literacy. We did a whole section in her class on it. And I'm so glad because you don't realize that, like, all of us, none of us are immune to propaganda. None of us are immune to being influenced. And all of us now, especially on this thing, with social media, where an algorithm is determining what you see, like, you are being influenced. And the more you think you're not, the more likely that it is that you are, right? It's designed to shape how you view things. So that would be my magic wand. Just give everyone the skill of seeing through that and being able to ascertain truth from fiction and check sources. I think everything would be so much easier.
Amen. Oh, what a good world. Yes. All right, Avery, it's time to,
more interesting.
yeah, serious. Time to brag about your business. So it's time for you to tell our listeners about your coaching and what you offer and how they can get in touch with you and all that good stuff.
Sure. So you can go to averyford.com or find me on Instagram. That's where I hang out a lot these days. It's just I'm Avery Ford. I am Avery Ford is my Instagram handle. Um, I help traditionally, I help business owners, entrepreneurs, CEOs, creators, and creatives um, build, launch, and grow their business online and offline. Um, One of the things that makes me unique is I built my own business for many years without social media. I didn't have to post or create content in order to attract clients. I've taught other people how to do that. And I've just now, in the past year or so, started to become visible again and play around with content. But that's what I do. That's how I help people. And I've been doing it since 2015 was when I started. I quit my full-time job and dove into the world of online marketing and never looked back. And I really love it. It's seeing people who are real experts and have skills, seeing them be able to show up and build a living from those skills and then build community and help others. It's really, really, what a good way to spend your time, you know?
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for
Thank you
sharing
for
your
having
passion.
me.
Oh my God, it was just a blast being here with you today. Yeah, I'm just, I can't help it. I fall in love with every participant that we have joining us, but I fall in love with the possibility of the work you're doing, the ripples you're creating, and I'm just so excited. Yeah, so excited. So if you're interested in working with Avery, go look him up. All the links will be with the podcast. You'll also find links for Martina and my link trees. Thank you everyone for listening. If you love this, please leave us a review. Please share with your friends. And please remember, you are extraordinary and you rock. Have a wonderful day.
Bye for now. Avery, you want to say bye?
Bye.